Did anyone go to the party? Oh, see? It must have been a good time then. All right, so I'm Michael Washam. I'm a technical evangelist on the Windows Azure team. This is Nate Totten. He's peer of mine, also on the Windows Azure team, evangelism team. And this is Johnny Halife. He's a lead developer for a startup named Morali that we're going to be talking a little bit about later. So this session is all about bootstrapping your startup on Windows Azure. What that really means is it's not really a technical session. It's more about pricing, how to get the most out of your money on Windows Azure for kicking off a startup. So first question, how many of you are actually in a startup today? A few? How many of you want to create a startup? You all want to get rich, right?
Why are the rest of you here?
Exactly. You have your services, you have your Nokia phone, and you really know that that's the way of the future, and you're going to go build some apps and get rich? Okay. So what we want to talk about is if you are a startup, or if you're in one right now, if you're building one, how Windows Azure can help. How you can really kick your start off as cheap as possible, but build some really exciting apps. So how Windows Azure can help? Most startups, back in the pre-cloud days, you'd have to actually have some capital investment. You'd have to get some hardware. You'd have to spend a lot of money just to actually do something creative in the technology industry. Windows Azure can help you pretty much start small. You can start as small as you can. You can literally have 8 data centers at your fingertips. All you need is a credit card. And with that, we even have some free services. With startups, free is always better. You don't have to worry about as much focusing on raising money to buy services as you do for actually just using the service and building your application. Another thing that's really critical with startups is prototyping. How fast can you prototype, get your application visible to your investors or your other people on your team so they can work with you and collaborate? And any startup quickly needs to deploy. Morali, they do hundreds of deployments. All startups, they really typically need to move quickly, update their application, get it with other developers and other testers. And this is a kind of a rinse and repeat fashion until the application is actually visible enough to actually go live. And once you do go live, hopefully it's successful. Hopefully you get mentioned in some of the startup websites and you get lots and lots of traffic, maybe 1 million hits. And that's where a cloud provider can really help you scale up. You don't want to be in the situation where you're off getting hardware, plugging in network cables while your site's giving server too busy errors whenever all your potential customers are out waiting, trying to get into your site. And just as importantly is the ability to scale down. You don't want to have to pay for all these additional resources once the initial excitement wears off, or if it's out of season for your application. And finally, one of the things that having global data centers can help you with is actually go global. It's great to be popular on the East Coast or the West Coast, but it's also better to be popular across multiple continents. And Windows Azure can absolutely help you do that. So what is Windows Azure? How can it help you? Well, it's a bunch of stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen this poster. It's really awesome. That's really the only reason I have it in here is just to show how cool this poster is. If you want a copy of this poster, it's out there in the Windows Azure experts area just on the booth. But really what this shows you is that we have lots of services, lots of capabilities to allow you to build pretty much any kind of application you want with a backend in Windows Azure. We are a global cloud provider. We have 8 data centers worldwide, and we're always expanding, looking to expand into multiple areas. We have 24 content deployment network endpoints. And best of all, bless them. We love the Visual Studio team. We love .NET. We're all .NET developers in some way or another. But we also like other platforms and other languages. We want you to come on board whether you're a .NET shop or not. We have native support for Node.js, PHP, Python, and Java, and you can run native apps. Pretty much whatever you can think of, you can get it to run in Windows Azure. We're also open source. So all of our SDKs, all of our libraries are all up on GitHub in the Windows Azure organization. You can download the source code, make a clone of it if you want to fix a bug. Welcome contributions back. The beautiful thing is you can really see how it works if you want to know the implementation details. And finally, you're a startup, you're working on your application. You don't really want to spend all your time trying to figure out how to do something. So we have this gigantic developer center in multiple languages for each SDK that have tutorials, videos, documents, everything that you need to know to figure out how to do simple tasks in Windows Azure. We also have Channel 9. We have massive amounts of videos, events, and shows. If you see the little screenshot there, this is Nate's Cloud Cover Show gives you kind of a weekly update on what's going on in Windows Azure. And another
semi-weekly.
Semi-weekly, for the most part. And some other important things to you as a startup is support. What happens if something breaks? If you're trying to use an API and it's buggy, how do you get that fixed? Well, Windows Azure has free support. You have an 800 number or an 888 number, or sorry, it's actually an 866 number. I can actually see it. You can reach out to support people. It's completely free for break fix. We also have community support through Stack Overflow and MSDN forums. The nice thing about the MSDN forums especially is we have multiple engineering teams from the product teams that actually build SDKs and services that you're working on. They man these forums and track bugs and issues as they come in. So now the most important part of the presentation is how do you actually save money with Windows Azure? How many of you are using Windows Azure today? All right. So what we'd like to do is get everyone on board as cheaply as we possibly can. So the cheapest way to get started on Windows Azure is probably going to be your 90-day free trial. It is only 90 days, of course, so if you can get your startup up and running in 90 days, that's awesome, but probably not always going to happen. So we do offer some completely free stuff. This is above and beyond the 90-day free trial. This is at any given time. You can have 10 free websites running on Windows Azure websites, and you can also have 10 free mobile web service or mobile services. We also have this thing that we just launched called the Windows Azure Store. Lots of our partners that are in the store also have free offerings, so you can get application monitoring from AppDynamics or New Relic. You can send email now from Windows Azure totally for free, up to $6,000 per month. All these are really meant for the very early prototyping stages of your startup. So whenever you're just now working on your idea, you're not spending all the money trying to figure out how to do stuff. A couple other interesting ones to point out is we do have MySQL now and MongoDB for pretty decent offerings just for prototyping for your very early stages. If you have an MSDN subscription, a lot of people that have MSDN today don't know that they have a lot of Windows Azure benefits that go along with it. If you have a professional subscription, you get up to $1,500 a month, or a year, sorry, in Windows Azure benefits, and Ultimate, you get all the way up to $3,700. So if you already have an MSDN subscription, you have a very capable hosting platform already built in. And if you don't have an MSDN subscription, but you would like one, we have a program called Microsoft BizSpark that works with startup companies that are just getting started, if you qualify, you can literally get a free MSDN Ultimate subscription. And it has all kinds of goodies built in, but the key is it's basically up to $3,700 a year in Windows Azure benefits. Once you're past the initial launch phase, where you're not just prototyping your application, we actually have more advanced BizSpark offerings, BizSpark Plus and BizSpark 1, that actually do have more advanced offerings for your company. So who qualify for BizSpark? This is just the first one. The Plus and 1 are different qualifications. And if you guys anyone's interested in any of these offerings, please come up afterwards and we can put you in touch with a BizSpark champ that could help. But basically for the initial BizSpark program, it's really any companies that are actively engaged in building some software that is privately held, has been in business for less than 5 years, and you have less than $1 million in revenue. We do have a big website, so Microsoft.com/BizSpark if you want more information on this. So what we're going to show you is we're going to walk through, actually we're going to launch a startup live right in front of you. We're all going to be rich. At the end of the session, we're all going to, thank you all very much for coming, and we're going to go off and live in our, drive around our yachts. But what we're really going to show is kind of the prototype of how a potential startup could start from scratch very cheaply and iterate and slowly add additional services to the demo. Nate?
Cool. So as Michael said, we're going to build a very exciting startup in here. It's going to be epic, probably IPOing sometime in the next 6 months. So you'll see my awesome UI skills. So we're going to basically go through in a few steps and build our startup. Add some components to it, and actually talk a little bit about the pricing. I know pricing maybe isn't the most exciting thing, but it is a reality of like, what can I get, what can I build? In most of the cases, the things we're going to show you is either going to be very free or very cheap. So the app I want to actually build, we're going to use Node.js for this. However, it doesn't really It doesn't really matter. So if you're a Node developer, great. If not, the same concepts apply across the board. I just used Node.js because I thought it was fun. It also ties in to what Johnny's actually going to show us in their real-world startup. Same concepts, though, will apply, obviously, to any language. We're mainly focusing on on the features for Windows Azure. So to get started, I'm actually just going to create, we're going to go start right from scratch. Let me just open my demo folder. And fonts. Can everyone see that? Is the font big enough? Good. Okay. Should it be, but just wanted to make sure. So let's just go ahead and make a new folder for our file new startup. We'll call this My Awesome Startup. So again, like I said, we're going to use Node.js. So I'm just going to get started with the most basic Node.js application, an Express app. So for those not familiar with Node, we'll go through this pretty quick. Like I said, the focus of this is not Node development. Just really quickly, for those not familiar, Express would be similar to something like ASP.NET or Ruby on Rails, something like that. It's basically a web framework. So let's just go ahead and get our app set up really quick. So we're running a script just to create a brand new website. Do npm install. And so this application, if you happen to see my talk yesterday, we're going to use a very similar application. But basically, we're going to do a little chat startup, a very revolutionary idea. And for that, we're going to use a real-time package called socket.io, which is actually very similar to SignalR, if you're familiar with that. npm install. Typing and talking is not super easy, which is why I have mostly. Don't worry, I have code snippets for everything, so we'll move pretty quick. This is actually the most difficult part. Oops, I forgot it. Let me do this one more time. So now that we've got our basic application set up, the first thing I want to do is actually just get this site up and running on Windows Azure, and then we'll go talk a little bit about kind of what we spent, what was free. So let me just open this up in the editor and make a few minor changes. So we're going to use Sublime Text here, rename this to server.js, and we're going to then set up basically our very simple chat application. So let me just do some snippets here. So we're not going to use any Windows Azure services to start. I'm just actually going to set this up as a basic chat application. Just a very simple website. Oops. So we're using socket.io, again, not the focus of this talk, but we're using socket.io basically to manage our real-time connection. And then we've got a very incredible user interface here that I'm extremely proud of. You're going to see, look how epic this is going to be. So now that we've got our application running, let's just go ahead and run it really quick and then deploy it up to Windows Azure. So just to see what we're working with here. What is that browser? Outrageous. So we basically got, let me open in two different browsers just so we prove that our little fancy chat startup is working. Hello. Bam. So now let's deploy that up to Windows Azure, where we've got our initial prototype built. Let me just deploy that using our Windows Azure command line tool. So Azure site create my awesome startup and enable Git, or we're going to publish this via Git publishing, which, as Johnny will talk about in his startup, enables us to very rapidly iterate on our website. Let's deploy to West US since it's the closest. So basically, what I'm showing you here is how we actually publish up to Windows Azure website. We're using Git deploy, which enables us to do very rapid deployment. Johnny's going to go in a little bit more quite a bit more detail about how they actually use Git deployment to iterate very, very rapidly. So we've actually deployed our website up to Windows Azure now. Let's go Azure Site Browse. And now we see we do not have a. Did this deploy? Git and create now.
Did you push?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Forgot that part. And let's commit. Yes, the actual sending the site. So we're going to add a message, initial source, and git push. So now we're git push Azure Master. So now we're going to push our site up to Windows Azure, and in just a few seconds, we're going to have our site running up in the cloud.
Got to be able to type in the right password, though. All right, much better.
So now we're deploying. We're pushing up to Windows Azure, and you'll see in just a couple seconds, we're going to have our site running. Our very fancy chat application. So we're doing install of all the node packages, all the dependencies right now, which this is an iterative deployment. So you'll see that Windows Azure websites, when we do subsequent deployments, actually deploys in just a few seconds because it is just a diff deployment, which enables us to actually iterate very rapidly. We could deploy tens or even hundreds of times per day in just a few seconds. So let's browse up to our awesome chat app now and see we have our hello. See our app running in the cloud. Very exciting. Bam. So we've got our application running up in the cloud. Let me open the Windows Azure portal just to see this application that we just created. I called it My Awesome Startup. So we see here initially we've got our site running. We've got some monitoring, and we're running on our free instance. So let's go figure out now what we've actually spent on this. It's switch back to the slides. There we go. So we've got our prototype running. So Michael, how much did this cost us?
Well, to host the application in Windows Azure websites using a free, remember this is a prototype, we're just trying to get it out there and test it, $0. To actually do the bandwidth, we're guesstimating 12 cents. And the reason I say 12 cents is because on the Windows Azure pricing calculator, the smallest increment you can get before you actually show any money is 6 gigs. I'm guessing it'll be next to nothing, but this is our worst case scenario for our prototype application. From there, assuming we're going to do some collaborative development, it would probably cost us around $7 for a private repo in GitHub. For a total prototype launch of our awesome startup chat application, $7.12.
Cool. Switch back to one. So the next thing we want to do is actually scale our application. If you're going to get some reasonable traffic, we're going to want to make sure that we're able to handle that. We also, with our free hosting, we also, as you notice, had this on My Awesome Startup 345.azurewebsites.net. If we're going to go talk to investors or customers, we probably don't really want to have our domain there. So with Windows Azure Websites, as we talked about a little bit before, we've got a few different options for hosting. So the first one I want to do is just go up to our shared hosting, and I think let me select, say, 2 instances. This will give me a decent amount of capacity. This will remove any pricing limits. So if for some reason one of our investors or even our initial testers go to our website, or our initial customers, they're not going to be limited by our free tier. So let me just go ahead and save that, and you'll see actually in just about 2 seconds our site's going to go up from our free instance to our shared instance. And the one thing you'll notice also is that isn't actually taken offline. So with Windows Azure Websites, we do all of our scaling without taking our app offline. So you can scale up or down very quickly. So you could imagine if your startup gets mentioned in TechCrunch, you could scale up to a large number of instances. You could also then go back down if basically your application, if it's at night or if you're getting lower traffic. So this can save you money for a startup. So for our shared instance and our domain. So the other thing we want to do is obviously add our domain. I'm not actually going to do that here, but this is a new feature we've added to Windows Azure Websites. If you haven't played around with it, this was added just about a month ago, I think. But we do support A records and C names with Windows Azure Websites. And with our shared and our reserved tiers of hosting, we do give you this for free. So there's no extra. There's actually no cost to this. So we could now add our myawesomestartup.com here. Add that again, A record. We give you a dedicated IP address, or we could add a C name like www.myawesomestartup.com. So that's at no extra cost. So I'm not going to actually save that since I have to deal with DNS, and that takes a little bit of time. But as you can see, I have scaled the site up to my reserved instance. So Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure.
what this costs now?
So the beta, this is our beta launch. It's actually on a little bit better hardware. On a beta launch, we would end up with $9.36 for a shared instance. If we do scale it up to 2 for our big launch, it would be $21. But for a single instance, it'd be less than 10. Still at the same bandwidth, because even though our beta, we're still not going to hit 6 gigs a month on passing little tiny bytes around on our chat application. GitHub repo is still $7. So for launching beta, we're a whopping $17 a month, $16.48.
Bam. So that's clearly the most amazing startup. So we do want to add a few more real features to it. So the first thing I want to do is actually save our chat messages in Windows Azure table storage. So table storage, for those not familiar with, is a schemaless data storage. It's highly scalable. It's also very cost effective. You can store a ton of data in there for really pennies. So for my application, let's just go ahead and actually add some saving to table storage. So first thing I'm going to do is install my Windows Azure package, npm install Azure. And so this is installing the Node Azure SDK. Of course, as we said earlier, we have many SDKs. So now I've installed that package, registered in my packages. And so let me just go ahead and add a few lines here now to actually use that Azure package, or to actually use table storage. Oops, snippet. Table create. So here we're going to create our table. Account name. We got to set our security settings. My awesome startup storage key. So I pre-created a storage account. So let me just copy that key. My awesome startup. So my awesome startup. And my account key. So now we're registered to use table service, and we're going to create a table called messages. And then when we receive that message, I want to go ahead and actually save that to table storage. So snippet, table save. Format that a little better. So now what we're doing is we're just creating a simple table entity. Again, no schema creation here, and we're going to save that to table storage. And once that's saved, we're going to return that data. We're going to do it asynchronously. So now that we've actually set that up to save to Windows Azure, let me just go ahead and redeploy this again. Git add and added table storage. Git push Azure master. So now you'll see where the iterative Git deployment actually works really well for Windows Azure websites. So as I mentioned, this is a diff deployment. So this deployment is actually going to just commit those few lines of code I changed. Not really, and it's going to install. We did add the Azure package, so it's going to also install that Azure package. But you'll see it's actually quite the Azure package. Unfortunately, has 1,000 dependencies, so it's going to take a little while.
The next deployment will be much
The next
faster.
deployment will be fast. Yeah, no, we're going to add another package during the next deployment. But you see there. We could do another deployment just
That's right, 4 deployments,
show,
just to prove it.
Just to prove. So now we've got our deployment. Let's go back to our Azure portal, and let's just look at our little deployment thing. So one of the things that I want to show that's really cool and useful for a startup is another feature that enables rapid prototyping. So, and also rapid, if you make a mistake. So you see here that I actually have my initial source here committed, and now my active deployment is my previous deployment. So let's just go ahead and refresh the site and make sure it's still working. If I made a mistake, though, I can actually roll back to a previous deployment. Let's do redeploy. And this actually just does take a couple seconds also. So another tool we have in Windows Azure websites that makes it super easy for startups to rapidly iterate. But we want to use our table storage, the one that actually uses table storage. So let's go ahead and redeploy that, and we're still online, so hello table storage, submit query. And now let me use another new tool we have we added in the Windows Azure SDK 1.8. We actually now we've improved the storage browser from Visual Studio, so I can use this right here. So we actually created this table, and let me go open this, and someone's actually using it. All right. Someone was in my previous talk, and I fixed my encoding so that it actually looks nice now. See, look at that. Bam. So yeah, I fixed that so it doesn't look so bad. I escaped it too much in my last talk because I was worried about people doing injection. Now your injection attacks just look pretty, at least. So as you can see here, now we've added table storage. and we've basically, and again, this new tool where we can see this all from Windows Azure Storage. So obviously we've only got a few messages here, so this is actually going to be less than 1 cent. But let's go ahead and figure out what this would actually. Oh no, there's one more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One more.
I also now am going to do another deployment. So now that we've added table storage, the next thing I want to do is that we want to use MongoDB. So MongoDB is one of our partner application, or one of our applications that's available through this one. That's available with. Did you close my browser, Johnny? Oh, okay. Well, we already set that up. No, I need it. Okay, hang on. Sorry. So MongoDB is one of the apps available through the Windows Azure Store. It's a data storage. So MongoDB, as Michael mentioned earlier, gives us actually free storage. So I've already gone and created a MongoDB instance, 500 megabytes for free from the Windows Azure Store. And the really nice thing about the Windows Azure Store is it's a very integrated environment. So I can actually go and create, say, all our services. Again, I already created a MongoDB. I can create a MySQL database with ClearDB. I can add SendGrid account. But it takes a couple seconds to create it. I already did it. But basically, we get this really nice integrated experience. You may have seen from some of our competitors offer similar stores, but they're really just like they embed an iframe, which works. But I really like how we've done this kind of embed all the connection info, so I can actually get my connection info right here without leaving the portal. So let me just copy the MongoDB connection string, and now let's set up our application actually to use MongoDB. So let me add a few more snippets. The first one here is, this is the right one. Yep. So the first one here is I'm going to set up my, basically add my MongoDB service, or add my MongoDB deal to, first I need to install the package. npm install mongoose. So we're going to use the mongoose package here. Install that really quick. Mongoose. So now that we have that, let me just add one snippet here really quick to use our MongoDB. So we're going to use MongoDB for our user registrations. So Mongo register. So we're just adding some of the code to connect to the server. I've actually already copied my connection string. And then we're going to create a schema, and we're going to use socket.io on register to actually save that user to MongoDB. And then let me just go ahead and edit my index again and add a bit more code to it. I'm just going to, for the sake of time. And so now I've got a bit more code. What I'm actually going to do is add a little, there's a command now where I can call register right from that same command line to actually register my user account. So let's do a git add again and commit. Added user registration. Git push Azure master. And let's deploy that back up to the cloud. And now we're going to install that new Mongoose package really quick. Not that quick. Awkwardly not fast, right? It is pretty fast, though, right?
Have to do one more deployment.
That's true. I should do an iterate. Okay, I'll change like a string and then do a deployment. Yeah, this one also has a lot of dependencies. So this is the thing about Node. There's like tons of open source packages that this is running slower than usual just to make it even more uncomfortable up here. Awesome. How's everyone doing? Questions? Feedback? Comments? Anyone want to leave?
One cool thing about the deployment is that even though your packages may have like a binary dependencies, like a C build packages, because Node lets you do that, it will compile. Azure will compile them using the C++ compiler for Windows, and it will run the native extensions for like a JSON parser, XML parser, and all that. That's why it takes sometimes a little bit longer, but it's all set now.
It's all set now. So let's go ahead and this is my register command, Nate. Very, very fancy. So user Nate has joined the chat was my message. So let's just go ahead and prove that deployment is really fast. User Nate has joined the chat. This time it is fast. Let's do a git commit again. Fast. git push Azure master. And this time, we're not going to have to install any packages, so...
You don't even need to refresh, I think. Like it will work.
Oh,
well.
the browser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you
true.
do because you already register. Maybe your code lets you register twice.
It definitely does. It definitely does. We definitely have some optimizations we need to make to our startup, right? So there we go. Without installing any packages, we see that we just basically did a diff deployment. This was literally just basically adding one single line of code, so it just happened in a second. And now, let's see, register Johnny. And, what? Uh-oh.
What happened?
Did I push it? Oh, wait. Deployment
Did you add?
successful. Yeah. Git add. Let's try this one more time. No, but it wouldn't have pushed anything. Git commit. Oops. Nothing to commit. Let's go look at our deployments and see what's going on. Fast. Okay, it did work.
Control F5.
Sorry, what now? Valid question. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's-
Index. Yeah, it's saved. Nothing to see here. Pretend it worked. I should not have pushed it. That was not a rehearsed part of the demo. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, moving on.
It quickly did not
It
work.
quickly deployed something. Don't really know. What was that? Yeah, we can roll back and you'll see that nothing changed. We should roll back because I have no idea what just happened. So, quickly rolling back. Awesome.
And go back.
Let's see it again. It may have had some sort of... It is still in preview, so if it fails, just blame the product team, right? So let's just register. Maybe. Hey, okay, it worked. Pretend it worked. Do not deviate from the script. All right, so what did we do here? Oh, so we added MongoDB. So let's go ahead and just open our little MongoDB portal. We're in the wrong web browser. 16, no, we're in the right one. Add settings. So let's just go ahead and see the few objects we've managed. Let's go external. So to manage this, now we're actually going to leave the portal and go to our partners page. We see here we've created a user account, and we have a bunch of users in here. Nathan, I registered several times, test, and my Johnny. So they all worked. I'm not sure why that other deployment failed, but anyway, trust me, it worked. It's a bug. Clearly, it was not my fault. No, I don't know. But anyway, so it's very fast deployment. We're using MongoDB. We're using table storage. So now we're really ready to scale our startup, and we're on the path to IPO. So let's go ahead and figure out what that costs.
Oh, no, we're still on shared. If TechCrunch hits us, we need more bandwidth.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Did I miss a step?
Yeah, we need to go to reserved.
What is happening? Okay. So the last thing is good point. We want to go to reserved. So let's go back to our deployment and scale. So before we are on our shared, which shared is still as makes sense. Shared is basically the same as our free hosting on Windows Azure websites, only without caps, so you can pay for bandwidth. We also offer another mode called reserved, and what this is still the same deployment model. You can still do Git deployment. It's still rapid iteration. However, instead of sharing your site in a high-density environment, we're actually going to give you an entire server, and you can choose both the size, small, medium, large, and the quantity of these servers. So let's do 3 large. Obviously, I don't pay the bill, so so in just a few seconds, we've deployed 4 cores with 7 gigs of memory each, and we've deployed 3 instances. So now we're really ready to scale our site up. This is a huge site, and it just takes a couple seconds to do that, and now it's done. And again, just to prove, all without taking this offline, so our site still works. Still works. And with that, how much does that cost? What's going on? Why are you people laughing? That worked perfectly.
So for our launch, we don't let Nate actually control the budget. So we did not launch with 3 large because we don't need
2.
that much. we're launching with 2 small reserved. These are still dedicated virtual machines, so 2 small reserved is actually pretty hefty just for serving web pages. Still the same amount of bandwidth unless we start taking additional needs like letting people upload videos or something like that. I think 12 cents is still pretty adequate. And MongoDB, adding all kinds of amazing functionality, is still 0 until we get up to post 500 megs. And now that we're actually adding some storage capabilities, we're saving data in table storage. Literally, the smallest you can get on the calculator is around 10 million transactions and 25 gigs. Literally, saving chat's going to be nothing compared to that. So really, for the entire application, would be less than probably $1 or $2. But worst case scenario, if we have millions and millions of users, we'd be up to $1 a month or $3 a month. So with our GitHub repo, we go entirely live on really awesome chat application for $125 a month. So now, in the real world, there are actual real customers that have built nice applications that when they deploy, they are updated and they do work. We have lots of them that are recently on Windows Azure. A lot of these are from our BitSpark program. And one of them that we do want to talk about today is Johnny Halife from Morali.
So,
Switch to your slides.
yeah, so I'll start first, like showing what Murally is, right? I'll do like Murally is a big wall that allows you to bring content from anywhere in the web and create a presentation and share it. Like we have a multi-user, stuff like that. So I don't know, do something like this. I'll have this open. I'll do like, I don't know, msn.com.
Why are you logged in with my account?
Because it's your computer, so I can drop. So I can drop links and create these kind of things. I can drag like stickers. Let's add some like text. I like this sticky. We can do some workaround to show whatever I want to show. Like you can copy and paste with the keyboard. We are all devs, so we like the keyboard shortcuts. We think it's pretty cool. So once I have like a decent amount of things, I will zoom out. I don't know how. Yeah, touch mouse, fancy. So I can drag and drop like frames. Here another one, number 3. I don't know where I put number 2. Should be around somewhere. Yeah, there it is. So once we have this, we can go into presentation mode and talk with our team what's going on, and this all is HTML5 and JavaScript running on Node.js on Windows Azure. So now that I introduce you to the thing to make it like it's real, it's a startup. Now let's jump to a little story about how we end up on Windows Azure and where we are. So Murally is what I've just showed you. Is a big wall as an HTML5 app, browser-based app running on Windows Azure. We launched on September 10 on TechCrunch Disrupt. We went from the 300 users that were like family and friends, my girlfriend, my mom, and a couple of friends around, to more than 20,000 in a month. We work on every browser, every platform, except Windows 8, like the Windows 8 phone. We're working on that too. So we evolve quickly. So why are we like looking into something like what Nate showed? Because we started with that prototype, that handwritten thing on a napkin, like, yeah, we should do this. And I should change the sticky that says like 1,350. For 1,400 deployments later, you're seeing the product that you're seeing. In fact, I will do this real quick. I will jump into my Jenkins CI. So we use Jenkins with OAuth integration with our GitHub private repo, and I will fire up a new production deployment. What I'm talking, like it should take like 2 minutes or something. So I'm deploying a new version of the app in production right now. So yesterday I did a talk on CI, and we hit the 1,400 for that time. So we are pretty heavy like deployment kind of guys, and we evolved the product really quickly. We started with that napkin, we want to like, hey, we'll build this collage tool where we'll bring pictures from Facebook, put stickers, and then was like, yeah, it's not enough. We should think of business side of it. And we were doing a pivot and after pivot and changing and visiting investors and all these, doing deployments and changing the app. It's like we evolve. We try to evolve quickly, but how we end up on Windows Azure websites, and this is like the fun part of the story. We evolve differently. So we started, and I will regret this forever, on Java and Google App Engine. We really like the business model, the billing model of Google App Engine because it was request-based, until we figured out that we will hit like 90,000 requests per hour as we are serving on Windows Azure per machine. So it gets expensive really fast. But the other thing is like, I don't know if I've been insulting anyone, but I hate Java, I hate Eclipse, I hate anything that it has to do with it.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I'm done with it. So we said like, okay, you don't have time to rewrite your app all day, like as you wish when you're running a product. So we said like, hey, there is this cool platform called Heroku. We will do a Node.js app, run it in parallel. So we created a REST API to back all our things while we were killing Java, until we got to the point where we were like the Node.js on Heroku. So how we got there is like, we hated the Java deployment took literally like 25 minutes. You may be familiar with that, but what you've seen that Nate show is like a whole new world, like seconds. So we said like, hey, Heroku has that. But we figured out that the deployments were taking too long because they spin up the process each time. So we were using a custom build of Node. We were using like Node.js 082 because we wanted the, I don't remember how the API is called, that gives you, I don't know if it's monitor or something like that, that will give you one, because Node is single thread, it will give you just one thread per core. So if we were running on a big machine, we wanted to be like multi-threaded. So we said like, it's taking too long. The other thing was like the billing model is like you get a dyno, which is like something that we don't yet know, and we were like starting to get hits. So we said like, hey, let's try Windows Azure. Which were our fears, like what we feared the most? None of us use Windows. Like, not well. I do now because we're working on the i10 multi-touch support. That's really cool for us. That's really cool for a product like this. But before we've seen Windows 8 and all that, none of us even had a PC. Well, yes, the designer, she used to, like, was the only one that has a PC. So it's kind of strange, but it's the truth. Like, we had all Macs, and we said, like, yeah, I don't know, will it run? Like, well, we want it to be like the optimized performance, has used native packages, and we don't run it on Windows. We won't buy the machines again to just run Windows or do bootcamp or whatever. So we found the CLI, which is a tool that Nate showed, that lets you create sites and do stuff like that. That runs totally, it's written on Node, it's open source, so we started using that, we installed it on the Mac, and we kept running. So actually the Jenkins that I show you, the one that is doing deployments to the app in production, is running on a Linux VM inside Windows Azure. So we use our build process on Linux and all that. So it works side by side. We're hosting on Windows, and since like a month ago, since I got like an Ultrabook to test the multi-touch support, we never even run it on Windows, and it runs seamlessly. So that was one. The other one is the support for the actual in memory like swap. Like they will swap the process and let the open connections die, and then we'll switch you back. They do deployments in place. You don't need to reinstall all the npms. And this is the critical factor that we figured out is like 30% of the deployments that were failing to Heroku were because npm.js is down. It is a CouchDB hosted somewhere that the community maintains, but Microsoft inside Windows Azure, they cache all the packages on the edges of the data centers. So except that you're running your own just new uploaded package that we sometimes do because we like contribute back to GitHub, you'll have the packages. They're really, really fast. So that doesn't matter if npm.js is down, your deployments won't fail. So that were the things that we really like and how we end up on Windows Azure. So what attracted us? The truth is, like, during a dinner with Microsoft people, they were like, yeah, we have this program, it's called Bixperk. We checked it out, and we said, like, we don't have much money. Like, we weren't even running our first, like, seed round. So we were trying to run the more free that we can. Like, even...
more free than we can.
So it's like, and they said, like, yeah, you get, like, the ultimate MSDN subscription. We weren't making any money. We're not making any money yet. So anything that comes for free is great. Then we end up qualifying for being a Bixperk Plus and eventually Bixperk 1 company. So in fact, we're running for the next 2 years. Hopefully we run out of the 60. You get like $60,000 on Azure if you qualify to be like a plus one. I hope we run out of the 60K before the 2 years, but if not, we have still 2 years to go almost for free. So the truth is that Bixperk is what attracted us, but what made us stay? Basically, 1,400 successful deployments that we've done so far. We are serving 80,000 requests per machine per hour. Most of that can be attributed to Node. Node is really awesome for the high-intensive I/O. So each change that we made in here gets queued and sent back to the client. We bunch it up and create like a MongoDB update that will modify an in-memory thing that we have that represent the board. I'll talk that in deep in the Azure Conf. I'll show how it works. But right now, it's like we are serving 80,000 requests per machine per hour on 2 small instances. So when we were live on TechCrunch, we didn't even need to scale. Like, it was like, you will notice that it will degrade the performance. You will go really down, like up to a second of a response time. But we were live. We were hitting like 1 million hits. We were getting literally. We got picked up by All Things Digital, Fast Company, Read Write Web, and TechCrunch itself, which then got picked up by Yahoo Finance, CNN Money in Mexico, a couple of newspapers. So we were being like stressed, and we don't even need to scale. The truth is, like, for the keynote, when Satya come to the thing and he like showed Murali and said like, hey, this is a cool startup that's doing thing, I had to scale because we were starting like hitting some stuff. But the cool thing is, like, we noticed that there is New Relic. So you can put New Relic for free. We started on the New Relic node kind of things. We are part of the beta. There is no public availability yet, but you will be able to like instrument Murali, an app like Murali for free on Windows Azure. So that was one thing. And the other one is that we are running a MongoLab, MongoDB dedicated VMs. Like, we upgraded the 500 megs because we are almost like 4 gig database. So we have a cluster there, and it's like, I don't know, 100 something, like less than 200. And we have a dedicated cluster with an arbiter and 2 nodes and all that. So it's pretty cool. So, I mean, before that, I had to build that myself, or even worse, go and choose like another hosted MongoDB outside Azure, which we were raising our outbound traffic like 5,000 times what we were supposed to do. So that's how we were spending the money. Now, when we made the switch, it went like from 5,000 times the outbound traffic to like 1,000. That is like the actual load of the site. But we dropped everything out, and the latency improved, and we're like really happy. The third point is, like, as I said before, we still have all our Macs. I know that you might get fired because I'm saying this. That's fine.
Oh, we definitely will.
Absolutely.
I hope we get like.
I hope you're hiring.
So we still have our Macs. We don't need to do like RDP. Those were our fears, right? So we were like, hey, if you do web roles, you'll have to RDP to debug and stuff like that, because that's what happened. When a cloud service booms, you will like go RDP and check that. The fact that the RDP doesn't work with the RDP client for Mac, it's like even worse. So we like, hey, who has a PC, spare PC that we can use to TS into one of these servers? So we didn't want that. We went there and kept our Macs, and that's fine. The other thing is, like, as I said, we've been on TechCrunch. We got like 1 million requests. Seamless experience. Nothing happened. No issues. I mean, you will notice that the app performance goes down, but we were alive. I mean, that is like the startup problem. Like, you have to be ready to go into a portal, scale, change the size of the machines, because you never know when you will get TechCrunch. Like, we plan, we try to have it planned, but you never know. Sometimes happens that there is like Murally seems to be something really cool for education, like K-12 kind of thing. So people, there are teachers using it. So there are teachers that are community like champions that they will say like, hey, check out this tool like for the classroom. And sometimes we get like, I don't know, 1,000 requests in an hour from Norway, like 1,000 new users. And we said like, does anyone have a cousin in Norway? And it's no. So it's like something appeared on a blog. So I found out this morning we were sitting on the speaker room that there is like a challenge, an education challenge of trying 30 tools in 30 days, and Miri is like the fourth one. So you never know. You start going viral. We are not doing any marketing and all that, but even there, you can like, hey, I found this cool thing, and you can get TechCrunch there. The other thing is like, as they show, our going to TechCrunch, like 500 users and all that, was $120 a month. So we were running 2 small reserved dedicated instances, like the reserved ones, because we wanted the DNS, and it was 120. So we served our TechCrunch story with 2 small instances. And the most important one is being a company that does like 1,400 deployments in a couple of months. So we do around 20 per day. You don't want to have like zero. You want to have like 0 downtime deployments. Like we want. Like I've done a deployment. It should probably finish by now. I don't know if I think I closed it. Oh, there it is. So yeah. So it finished. We don't want to take the app down or do whatever strange thing when the app is deploying. Like we want to say like, hey, hold the horses. Murally is going to give you an updated version 20 times a day because it will be frustrating for you. So that's how we end up using Windows Azure. So this is like my advice, and this is not like from a particular, not Microsoft side. Like, this is from the real-time experience. Like, go and hack on it. Use the MongoLab 500. If you're doing like Node.js, if not, you can do like SQL databases or stuff like that. But
MySQL.
Yeah, whatever works best for you. But if you are like us, which we run on a Node.js app, we want to use whatever is the best for the thing and not what the platform gives you. Like, we don't want to be constrained. We are here today because we can run what we want. Like, we are running Mongo and Node.js. It's not a SQL server. It's not like anything that has to do with Microsoft. We are just hosting the platform. It's seamless for us. So if you are like us, you should start like this because it's free. I mean, as I said before, we wanted it to be the more free that it's good. We're still working on that. You should apply it on the Bespark Plus, and whatever you can get a hold on. will work. Like we are serving tons of requests. We're really happy with the deployment that we have, and we are happy that we don't have to pay the bill at the end of the month. Until right now, that we don't have any money. So,
cool. Right. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
So, do we have a? Oh.
No, we have a wrap up. So, what you hopefully learned today is that with Windows Azure, you can start cheap and hopefully even free. If you're like Murali, you can hopefully get some really good benefits. You can get MSDN, you can get all kinds of really good benefits from Windows Azure to get started. The address for BizSpark, Microsoft.com/BizSpark, and Windows Azure is really the key for doing easily deploy and scaling your apps. And if any of you guys have any questions, we'll be in here for a few minutes, but we can also be out at the Windows Azure Experts Lounge for a little while. So feel free to stop by and ask us anything.
If you have a question, you have 4 minutes, 23 seconds.
Oh, that's right. And you do have 4 minutes now to ask questions.
To have it recorded and live on the channel 9 using the microphone. So you should go there because when people will go...
We can repeat it too.
Yeah, either way.
We can do that.
One question. How do you get to be a BizSpark Plus member?
Question, how do you get to be a BizSpark Plus member?
So for us, how it worked out was like we created the app. We were members of BizSpark. You have to be endorsed by a known either BizSpark Plus startup or an accelerator, like Techstars, 500 Startups. I don't know if Y Combinator has there, but you have there are like Techstars basically and 500 Startup. They can say like this could be a high-profile startup. You sign up some forms. It's nothing like Microsoft will own your company or something like that. It's just like, yeah, I accept all these benefits. And goes that way, but I think that the way is always through.
Yeah. So basically the idea is you sign up for the regular BizSpark, and the regular BizSpark, I mean, is still enough to run even a fairly large. You guys actually probably aren't even using anything more than what you get with the free BizSpark. So the idea is basically sign up for that, use it for free, you get it for quite a number of years. And then like if you were to have actually like get larger, the other programs are more like invite or partnered programs.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the BizSpark Ultimate, and I'm already paying about $30 to $40 a month.
Oh, you've grown beyond. Okay.
Nice.
And that's why I was interested in.
Yeah. So if you're part of any startup acceleration program or whatever.
That's the way.
Yeah, that's the way. I mean, that's the shortest path that I know of. Like when I call. They said like you had to be endorsed by someone, and mostly like the trusted, because Microsoft administers the BizSpark Plus and one like a startup accelerator, startup school itself. So you have like classes and you have like all that. So basically, it's the same experience like going to get like a Bootstrap or a part of an accelerator. You have to go make your pitch, and if they see potential in you, they usually give you like seed money that you might need or not for a percentage of your company, and then give you access to all these benefits.
We can take this offline, but if you want, shoot us an email.
Yep.
I have a card, but you can shoot me an email. I can get you in touch. I can at least get you in touch with the people to kind of explain it a little better. So I think we have time for one more question. Yeah.
Is the Git integration coming to cloud services anytime soon?
Question: is the Git integration coming to cloud services? We don't have any announced plans on that. It's certainly something a lot of people have asked for. I don't know of any like particular plans on it, but my hope would be hopefully we will. But yeah, nothing to say yet on that.
There is a open source project that one of the guy that actually written IIS Node has created that is called Git Azure, that it's available on GitHub.
On GitHub,
Yeah, I contribute to that too. It's like you can host like a worker role and give like a Git-based deployment to worker roles. So it's an open source. It's completely unmanaged. We don't even I personally don't even spend too much time on it now, but you have like the basis for creating your own like a Git-based deployment thing. So
Cool. So I think unless anyone has anything else, I think we're about out of time. We'll be around, but thank you guys all for sticking around. Please, I don't know if you have evaluations, but if you can complete the evaluations, that definitely helps us figure out if you guys like this talk or not.
Thanks.